A while back, I reviewed Time Kettle's W2 translating earbuds, which held a lot of promise, but weren't very logistically practical. The WT2 had separate earbuds that you had to share with another person, plus a phone app you needed to get everything working all together. Sure, they translated speech decently, but all those pieces just wouldn't work in real life situations, and the setup was clunky. What I want and what I think would be most useful for you and closer to that ideal of a Star Trek Universal Translator is a small device that you could speak into and it would spit out another language to another person standing in front of you. They would speak their language. The device would automatically recognize that language and spit back out a language that you understand. It would be small, portable, and maybe have a camera on the back so that you could translate road signs or menus and other things that you might want to read. And this is the Fluentalk T1 Mini, which is exactly all of those things, and it works surprisingly well. Hi everybody, foXnoMad here, and today I want to help you travel smarter with my review of the Time Kettle T1 Mini Translator. But first, if you're not already, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, and let's get started. We all dream of a future like Star Trek, where a tiny device called a Universal Translator helps alien species all communicate with one another in a single language. You speak in your language, they hear in theirs, and vice versa. This is the T1 Mini, not embeddable in your ear like on Star Trek, but still quite small. It's a white device with a 7.8 centimeter touchscreen on the front. It's not super high resolution, but for this use case, it really doesn't have to be. It's noticeably smaller than an average smartphone, but a little bit thicker, measuring 91 by 55 by 13 millimeters and weighing 86 grams. The T1 Mini isn't heavy, but for its size, it's a little bit heftier than you might expect at first glance. Powering the internals are a gigabyte of RAM with 8 gigabytes of storage and a quad-core ARM 1.28 gigahertz chip. Around the back, there's a 5 megapixel camera, an on-off switch up top, volume buttons on the side, and a single translate button right here. The specs aren't anything that will blow you away, and you're not going to be using the screen to watch videos, and the boot up time is almost painfully slow. Once it does fire up though, the T1 Mini has a singular focus, and that is to translate. Downloaded on the device for offline use are 13 language pairs, including English, Chinese, French, and Spanish, among some others, and you can also download a few more languages like Korean, Japanese, and German for additional offline use. When the T1 Mini is connected to Wi-Fi, however, that gives you access to an additional 36 languages with 88 dialects from Bulgarian to Turkish to Swedish. Embedded in the T1 Mini is also a non-removable SIM card, and when you buy a T1 Mini, you get a year's worth of free mobile data to support translating, meaning across 84 countries, the T1 Mini will work with a built-in cellular connection. When that introductory free year of cellular service expires, you can always get more from Time Kettle, and it costs about $45 for an additional year, or you can just continue to use this device offline or just with Wi-Fi. Now, other than that, it is a pretty simple device. You've got a speaker grill here, you've got a microphone grill here, and a USB-C port here for charging. The T1 Mini has a 1500 milliamp hour battery, and depending on whether or not you're using Wi-Fi or a mobile connection, you can expect about 2 hours of on-screen battery life with more than 7 days of standby time, unless you forget to turn it off. Then the standby time drops to about a day and a half, but fortunately though, you can charge from about 20 to 80% in under an hour. Well, now that you've seen the hardware, how does the T1 Mini combine that with its software to translate, and how does it actually work? Well, let me show you. Using the T1 Mini is fairly straightforward and actually quite impressive. In the main screen here, you set your two languages and dialects. For example, English has a US dialect, a Canadian dialect, an Indian dialect, and Spanish has Spain and Honduras as dialects, among a bunch of others. Once you set your languages, you simply hold down this button on the side and speak. So if I have the T1 Mini set to English and Turkish, I'd speak English and get a translation. And then when the person I'm speaking with responds, you just hold down the button and it automatically recognizes that Turkish is being spoken and translates that for you. Here's a demonstration of the T1 Mini in action. All right, so my dad is back now to help me test the newest version of the T1. And this is a lot different because it doesn't have the earbuds. It's just this single device that we have. We're going to speak English and Turkish and see how well this works. So, hello, how are you?
Merhaba, nasılsın?
Teşekkür ederim. İyiyim. Siz nasılsınız?
Thank you, I am fine. How are you?
Okay, so the way this works is I push the button, I speak English, it's set to Turkish. When he speaks, it detects that he's speaking Turkish, ideally, and that way we don't have to figure it out. I'll speak and then he'll reply back, and hopefully the T1 will figure that all out. I am good. Thank you for doing this video with me.
Bu videoyu benimle yaptığınız için teşekkür ederim.
Bir şey değil, her zaman.
Not always.
Okay, that didn't quite work. So obviously the advantage of this is that we both know the language that the other person is speaking, so we can tell if there's an issue with the translation. But if you didn't speak English and I didn't know Turkish and this were Chinese or Spanish or something else, then we wouldn't know if we were miscommunicating. And the T1 Mini doesn't get things right all of the time. So let's try something else. Let's say, um, where is the car in the parking lot?
Parkta araba nerede?
Okay, close enough.
5 dakika önce şurada park ettim.
I parked there 5 minutes ago.
The translation is not that bad.
Çeviri o kadar da kötü değil.
Evet, benim için de sürpriz oldu.
Yes, it was a surprise for me and me.
Was a surprise for me and me. So it's not exactly perfect, but it works. Do you think this would work if you were traveling and using it with real people?
Kesinlikle işe yarar.
Because it definitely works. Really nice translate done.
Like I said, there are some advantages. We're in a very closed space. We're just talking to each other. There's no external sounds. I know what he's saying. He knows what I'm saying. So we don't really need this. And we can tell if something is miscommunicated. And another thing this does really well is that we don't have to worry about speaking. Like last time we spoke like a robot. We were talking like this one. We can speak much more naturally. And you can see it's getting a lot of the text. So it's getting all of this text. I've been talking and talking and talking, and let's see how well it translates this whole block of text.
Bunun gerçekten iyi yaptığı bir başka şey de, bir robot gibi konuştuğumuz son zamanki gibi konuşma konusunda endişelenmemize gerek olmaması.
Okay, so not bad. But another thing that I have noticed is sometimes it's a woman's voice speaking and sometimes it's a man's voice speaking, and it just kind of does it randomly. Like there's no, you know, it's not consistent. I don't know why that is. I mean, it doesn't really matter for what you're doing here, but it's just kind of a weird software quirk. So it would be a lot more natural if, like, for example, when a woman was speaking, it would use the woman translator, or if a man was speaking, or if you could just set that in the settings to whatever preference you wanted. So any final thoughts?
Yardımcı olacağını düşünüyorum.
Yes, I think a really interesting nice tool for travelers will help.
There you go. So definitely upgrade. This was a lot easier. I didn't have to give you anything to put in your ear. I didn't need my phone. We just needed this one little device, and it translates pretty easily. Thank you very much.
Bir şey değil.
See, the T1 Mini does a good job of translating to and from English, which is one of its core languages. I'm going to guess it's good at translating to and from Chinese as well, between French, Japanese, and German, one of those 13 languages it pairs and stores offline. But when it comes to translating to non-core languages like Swedish to Turkish, it falters fairly often. For example, it also seems to have trouble translating between Arabic and, say, Korean in my testing, so there is work to be done there. When it comes to translating with the camera, it is pretty good, even across less common fonts, and you can also point this at a screen and you'll find menus, cafe signs, and websites, all of that translated for you. The translation is pretty quick, almost always less than a second, both with the visual and written text, so the experience is a smooth one, even if the translation isn't always perfect. The T1 Mini is actually a piece of gear that I would add to my travel pack, the one I travel with pretty much everywhere, because it is small, lightweight, and it serves a very useful function. Yeah, it is kind of awkward to point this or hold this between two people at first, somebody you don't know, but once they see it in action, usually most people's faces light up, and it's kind of nice, and it gives you a little bit more communicative ability and also answers whatever question you happen to have at hotel reception or wherever you happen to be. You could alternatively use your phone and download languages offline using Google Translate or a similar app, but this translator is a lot less expensive than your phone, which you might not want to take out with you everywhere. The T1 Mini is also a dedicated translating device, so in a situation where maybe you have in-laws coming over who don't speak the language that you happen to speak, or you've got some kind of office meeting or something like that, you could just kind of leave this in a room in the kitchen or in the office. People could just grab it and use it as they need. So when you're translating or when you need translating services through this device, you don't have to totally give up your phone. You can just, limit everything to this device here. And if you want to go back and see your old conversations, you can simply scroll through the screen and see a lot of the other translations that you've made. So you have a record on the device of some of your previous conversations. Now, like any internet connected device with a microphone that you speak into, you might be wondering about privacy. So I got in touch with Fluentalk about this and asked them, how do they store your conversations and what kind of use do they make of the actual data that you're putting into this in the form of words and languages? And they told me they anonymize all of your data, so your conversations can't be traced back to you. So they don't know when, who, and where the conversations are coming from, and they don't necessarily record everything that you're talking into the device with. That's going to be an issue with many translator devices and apps, and something that you should inquire about. What kind of privacy policy do they have with the conversations that you're speaking into these kind of devices? But I'm guessing in most cases, you're not going to be having any kind of sensitive conversations. You're really going to use this for things like, hey, where is that restaurant? Or how can I get back to my hotel? Or what time does that tour bus leave? Those kind of things, those kind of really common situations and conversations and questions that you have when traveling. Overall, the T1 Mini is a useful tool if you're traveling somewhere and don't know the local lingo. It can help you bridge the language barrier, in some languages a little bit better than others. It's not Star Trek's universal translator, but it is a big jump in the hardware and software of a device like this and gets us a little bit closer to that reality. Almeno credo.
At least I think so.
That's my review of the T1 Mini. Let me know if you have any questions or if you think this is a kind of device that you might take with you on your next trip. Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'll have new videos for you every week, and I will see you in the next video.